Pepper will introduce you.
What?
Just to restate one of Randy's comments, he said the guy, our friend in Ottawa who thinks he's Prime Minister, it's actually the guy who is our Prime Minister who thinks he's our friend is our problem. I'm going to read from Randy's website, and I think it's pretty important. There's a number of people taking initiatives, Yveraz, others, to create popular conversation, to create dialogue. And I encourage you to sign up for all of them, whether it's Alberta Proud, Ontario Proud. There's a lot of different communities that are being developed. Be a part of them and be a vocal part of them. I'm just going to read to you from the website that Randy's put together, which is called albertadoesn'tfit.com. And it says here, the campaign is about building a place for Alberta in a modern, federated state that has a responsible freedom, true democracy, and real equity for all. Put your hands together for Randy Roy. And now, Becca.
All right, we have one more speaker for today, but before we get to that, I know they're going to be posting a survey, and I know that kind of sounds like that's not a lot of fun, but I think that was the whole basis of what our conference was about, was we listened to what you had to say on Alberta Proud, and that's why we're here today. So we want you to take the survey seriously. Please go home, check it out, and we're going to take that feedback and we're going to move forward with it. So in closing, I'd like to welcome the lead of Canadians for Democracy and Prosperity, who collaborated with us and the Buffalo Group to bring this conference here today. Please help me in welcoming Prem Singh.
We're almost done. You need 10 more minutes before we can leave. There's been many brilliant minds that have spoken here today, and I'd like to thank them all for participating in this important discussion on the value of Alberta. I'd also like to thank all of our speakers, distinguished guests, and I think we've started an official Lord Black fan club in Calgary, because I know I have. I'd like to thank our sponsors, notably the Buffalo Group, who was key in this event being initiated by Alberta Proud and Canadians for Democracy and Prosperity. And I'm here closing the day with some thoughts as a passionate Albertan, like all of you here today. For those of you that heard me in Red Deer, forgive me, you're about to hear a very similar message. The West can't wait. This personally takes me full circle to when Alberta Can't Wait began. The ruling political elite was against it. Both the PCs and the Wild Rose were dead set against unity, but grassroots conservatives banded together, put aside their partisanship, and got together for a common goal. Alberta conservatives let politicians and party establishment know that we were not waiting on them, but we united in a manner that was the quickest path to power. We did not change the culture of politics, and as we all know sitting here today, that culture has changed. There are a lot of similarities in what we faced in 2016 and what we face now. Getting the West a new deal is not a partisan issue. It is about all of us. It is not about the NDP nor the UCP. This is not about the Trudeau Liberals or the federal Conservatives. It is about everyone. We need to see more political power and influence be back in the hands of everyday voters and away from the political elites and insiders who have lost touch with what taxpayers want. I do not believe maintaining the status quo or simply accepting some problems as unsolvable is adequate. Private sector and private individuals deal with such issues every day, and there is no reason our government cannot do the same. Our politicians need to respect democracy. They are not celebrities, they work for us. Many, if not all, across the political spectrum seem to think otherwise. We must be able to have civil discourse about all issues, no matter how difficult they may seem. I think we can agree Canada is at a crossroads and our confederation is in peril. What we do know right now is, with the devastation of the energy sector, Alberta and Saskatchewan cannot afford to maintain the tax burden and support the rest of the country. As Diane Francis so aptly said, and I quote, "Alberta is Canada's breadwinner, but is treated like a stepchild." Since 2010, Ottawa has taken an average of over $20 billion a year out of Alberta. Quebec receives $13 billion, or 2/3 of every dollar in the federal equalization program. This bribery of Quebec needs to end. Trudeau's re-election has caused further inflammation of the woes of the West. Alberta at present is said to be a no investment zone by pension funds at a conference the day after our federal election, given the combative relationship between our Premier and Prime Minister. The Wexit movement and the discrediting of the fringe elements associated around it is mocked by the Laurentians and the media. Canadians have always been known to be a thoughtful bunch, but now it seems that that empathy has been lost. Years of hardship across the country with the loss of manufacturing jobs in Ontario, the fishery jobs in the Maritimes, the forestry industry in BC that was cut in half, the rest of the country is less sympathetic to the losses of the West. Unfortunately, many are smug, and they say we deserve it. The status quo is not an option. There's a fire building, and the emotions of our populace stem from leadership. We cannot fix this through combative aggression between the provinces and Ottawa vis-à-vis our politicians. It needs to be pursued genuinely, honestly, and earnestly from the grassroots up. Canada is economically doomed. The West is being ignored. Our capital inflows have collapsed, and it amounts to a $62 million loss per day. Our foreign relations with India, Russia, China, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Japan have been damaged. Our unity has been destroyed. Ipsos has said more Canadians are 2 months away from bankruptcy, and our household savings are lower than the US. We are not competitive globally. We are fully taxed. We are the poorest place to invest in all of the G7 countries. Our engine of growth, being the energy sector, has been devastated. Last year, a fair deal panel of politicians and politicos was appointed to listen to Albertans with a goal of 2021 to hold a referendum on equalization. That is too late. Construction of the TMX pipeline must commence immediately. No more delays. If this does not happen in the coming weeks, we must do the following over the next 9 months. We must inform Trudeau that the West will hold a referendum on sovereignty mid to late 2020. This will not be ignored, and more importantly, it worked for Quebec. We must immediately take steps towards self-sufficiency, withdrawing from the CPP and establishing a provincial plan just like Quebec did. Alberta would get billions from its share of the $440 billion to invest into new projects. Saskatchewan and Manitoba and others should join Alberta in refusing to pay the federal carbon tax. We must demand the repeal, alteration of Bill C-69. We must collect provincial income tax, restructure or establish provincial employment insurance. We must opt out of supply management. Alberta and Saskatchewan must work together with BC to initiate crude oil delivery to the West Coast and deal directly with the U.S. with respect to Alaska and to the South. Negotiating pipelines and commencing crude by rail directly to the United States would be easier than dealing with other provinces and Ottawa. The U.S. Gulf Coast is where the highest concentration of refineries are that process our heavy crudes. We must get beyond the deemed popular stance of derangement with the President and foster our own relationship. We have much to gain from our ally and neighbor. Our energy, our potash, our uranium, our agriculture, all require a positive working relationship with the United States. We can do this ourselves immediately. We must engage with Manitoba on a pipeline to Churchill. We need to renegotiate equalization, stabilization, and other transfer payments. We must establish new tax policies to enhance and attract new businesses to the West. All of this requires action now, and politicians' agendas need to be put aside for a new deal for the West and for the unity of Canada. It is more than just economics now. The Fair Deal panel seeks to emulate Quebec on everything but a referendum. It is a nice distraction, and if it was 4 years ago, perhaps it would be palatable, but right now it appears to be a delay tactic. We can legislate much of it now, as it does not require constitutional amendment. We need to properly inform Albertans. This is nonpartisan information and should appeal to everyone. When 2,000 people were let go in Oshawa, both Trudeau and Scheer rushed to visit that city. I do not recall the same of either leader when we had larger job losses here. It is not whataboutism, it is a fact. It is not whataboutism, it is a fact that our system does not work for the West. The alienation is deep and people are hurt. Albertans are proud Canadians, and right now we feel there is no future here. The Laurentians always dominate and cater to Quebec and Ontario. Our ballot box is dysfunctional, and the West suffers because of it. Divisiveness is at an all-time high. Emotions are running rampant, and frustration is seething into anger. This has now become personal for people and their families. It is way beyond TMX now. We in the West are asking, do we really even count? Is this a place we can stay when we will never be treated as equals? Reinforced after this federal election is that no matter what we do in the West, who we vote for, nothing changes. People are giving up hope, and when you beat people down enough, with that much emotion and hurt, you don't know what will happen. The situation is volatile and has the potential of being explosive. We must use leverage now. We must use leverage immediately because nothing else has worked. People here are feeling that Central Canada and the government of our country, partisanship aside, does not care. All of this coming together in profound emotion, people are losing everything. The tone of our governments has to change. There needs to be a massive effort, a complete turnaround. TMX will get built eventually for political reasons, but not because of our concerns, nor will it solve all of our problems. It is too little, too late. Canada is closed for business. Our energy resources are landlocked. Our regulatory system, budget, and foreign trade has been infused with gender and cultural demands which have made our country a laughing stock, let alone financially paralyzed. Tax and spend is the government mantra. Open, unvetted borders have become our new immigration standard. Globalist politics have trumped common sense. Is this even a Canada we want to be part of? The private sector is investing elsewhere, and the federal government is backfilling this loss. This too is unsustainable, but the only thing that has kept our economy afloat. Our current projected debt is $93 billion, of which $26 billion alone is to service debt. With just a 2% increase in interest rates, the debt servicing number becomes $79 billion. This is very worrying, but does it even resonate? Young people do not know the consequences of deficit spending. They soon will, sadly. Populism is a symptom of people in charge. Things are happening in secret between the corporate, the government, and the establishment. Our system is faith-based. If people come to believe the system is rigged, for which it is for the West, then what? We will, as we see now, profound dissatisfaction, profound distrust, and profound unrest. You can't lead people you don't care about. Empathy is a prerequisite for leadership, and our leadership is lacking this at all levels. I am digressing here, but while we must be genuine in the negotiation of a new deal, we must also seriously think about taking the next step, changing our entire relationship with the rest of Canada. As an independent West or Commonwealth, we would cut our tax burden in half and overnight become an attractive economic jurisdiction in North America. This should appeal to everyone across the political spectrum. Teslas for everyone with our equalization contribution alone. We would become the Norway of North America. As Leon Craig from the University of Alberta so aptly said, everything the federal government does, we can do better, more efficiently, at a lower cost, and in a manner that suits us. The West would flourish, being blessed with natural resources and our hard-working entrepreneurial people. Our population would grow, and we would attract many people who share similar values. In addition to economic benefit, we would also have influence over social and political culture. I encourage all of you to read Leon Craig's open letter to Premier Kenney. The West can't wait because Canadians have made it clear they do not share our same values when it comes to the development of our energy resources. They overwhelmingly voted for parties which supported aggressive punitive measures to address climate change, and leaders who have said Canada and the West need to transition away from fossil fuels. The West can't wait because regardless of who leads the Conservative Party, that won't change. The West can't wait because there is a lot of anger and desperation on the part of Westerners who have been rocked by a bad economy, high unemployment, and little empathy from the rest of Canada who malign our energy sector while directly profiting from it. If not properly channeled, this anger risks boiling over into dangerous negative outcomes, especially if there's the perception that nothing is being done to concretely address their concerns. Asking them to wait almost 2 years before giving them a vote on just equalization will not placate those demanding real action now. The West can't wait because a vote on separation scheduled within the next calendar year while Canada is in a minority government situation gives us the most political leverage to extract concessions from the federal government on key issues. The West can't wait because the federal government, and frankly our provincial government, will hope to blunt separatist sentiment by taking a go-slow approach. Making quick progress right now is vital in sustaining the momentum created by the re-election of the Trudeau Liberals. Much of what Quebec has, we can enact now. Albertans are resilient. We are used to being told by the ruling elite that we can't do certain things. We were told by politicians that Alberta can't wait wouldn't work. We were told unity would not happen. The West can't wait is the same. And let me be clear, we are not saying separation from Canada is a must, but a new deal for the West is. The West and Canada cannot survive this relationship in confederation as is. Again, this is not about partisan politics, and this is an issue that everyone across the board should be able to find a common denominator with. The West needs a new deal, and if we need to hold a referendum to negotiate this deal, so be it. So let all of us make this easy for our leadership. The current Canadian reality is unjust and will remain unjust to our children and their children in all aspects, economically, culturally, morally, and politically. There is no reason to believe this will improve, but it will get worse. The Canada we know and love is not the same Canada where I was born and raised. I'm not an expert in anything, but I'm getting emotional like you, Becca. I'm merely an everyday citizen with hopes and ideals that we can make the future a place that we are all proud of and prosper in. We can do politics differently. I want to thank you for your time today. And again, thank you to all our speakers, distinguished guests, sponsors, and sorry, not sorry if I've offended anyone with my thoughts, because that's all they are, my thoughts, upon which I hope you can all reflect and have further discussion upon with your friends, family, and colleagues, because the West really can't wait, and Alberta does have value. God bless.